Hold on. Did you hear that? Let's see if it does it again.
Honky!
Yep, that was, most assuredly, the cry of the wild honky. I'd like to share with you a journey of my tracking of the wild honky. It all began when I started calling all my friends honky. I guess I was jealous of African Americans who could call each other nigger. And then one day, when I was hanging out with my family, my uncle overheard me call my brother honky, and he was like, "Ooh, you shouldn't be using that word." Why not? You know where it comes from? No. This is what he told me. I don't know if it's true, but it's priceless. Back in the Old South, when a man was looking for love, the type you have to pay for, but he was too poor to afford a white prostitute, he would drive down into a poor black neighborhood. He wanted to get out of his car because he knew the brothers on the street would kick his ass. So he'd stay in the car, stay at the driver's seat, and honk on his horn until she came and got in the car and he drove away with her. Oh my God, you're right. That's horrible. But then a couple days went by and I thought, oh my God, that's the perfect word. That's what we all do all the time. We're all driving down into the poorest neighborhoods of the world to obtain our objects of our desires. We're afraid to get out of our cars. We stay in the driver's seat and we honk on our horn until the objects of our desires get in the car and we drive away. Except for these days, not only are we honkies, we're not even aware that we're doing it. It's like we're clueless honkies. And then I began to realize that the clueless honky is like a club, but the strangest club of all time. It's a club that you don't need admittance to get in, you need admittance to get out. In that the first step of getting out of the club of the clueless honky is to admit that you're in it. Hello? I'm Chris Farmer, and I'm a clueless honky.
Hi, welcome, Chris.
I eat food that I don't know where it comes from. I'm heavily addicted to the fractional distillation of petroleum. I wear clothes and shoes, and I use electronic gadgets that are made very, very, very far away. How did I get myself into this mess where my life is dependent upon things which I don't know how to give thanks to? That's a tough question to answer. But over time, this is what I came up with. I noticed that we're creatures of story, and I began to wonder, is it because we lack a coherent enough creation story? By creation story, I mean one of those stories that answers the big questions. Who are we as human beings? Where are we? Why are we here? That elucidates our connection to source. Because if I unwittingly became a clueless honky, I must have lacked some kind of clear sense of who I was, where I was, why I was here. To get another perspective on how this plays out, how having a lack of a coherent creation story plays out, I want to rewind about 200 years to a luminous, intellectually and morally luminous figure that we've all heard of, Thomas Jefferson. Now, he was in a similar predicament in the fact that his life was dependent upon things that he didn't know how to give thanks to. Now, as we all know, Thomas Jefferson penned the Declaration of Independence. Less well known, he also wrote a book called The Notes on Virginia. Actually, the only book he ever authored. It's written here. What allowed and what continues to allow this kind of confusion, these kinds of ridiculous justifications for the unjustifiable, even from one such as Jefferson? I begin to wonder, like, if your creation story doesn't help you make sense of the tricky stuff in life, well, then you just start filling in the blanks, so to speak. Like, you wind up, that's where you start creating the ridiculous justification for the unjustifiable. And then over time, what happens, like when as time went on, as we got new technology, we were able to hide, we were able to export the unjustifiable beyond the horizon of our lived experience. What I'm trying to say is that we transitioned from slaveholders to clueless honkies. And I also wonder if the creation stories that we do have as a culture, if they're too infected with guilt, sin, and blame to do us any good. Because if we're all caught up in guilt, sin, and blame, we can't really learn. We just walk around in circles. We don't get anywhere. So what I'm here to do is to propose that it's time, that it's past time, to create a new creation story. Why not? And I'd like to go ahead and offer some design parameters for just such a story. Main design parameter. My dream is that there would be a main umbrella type story that could frame an infinite number of sub-stories within it, kind of like the 1001 Arabian Nights. Maybe not so explicit as that the woman is telling a number of unfinished stories to every night before they go to bed, but something that could fit an infinite number of stories within it. And ideally, the main umbrella story would actually already exist and would be familiar to most people already. Like it was some kind of sleeper story that just needed to be slightly tweaked and awakened to reveal its full potential. And ideally, the frame story would answer not only who are we, where are we, and why are we here, but would elucidate our connection to the source of our lives in such a way that it would answer, without resorting to any guilt, sin, or blame, how did we become such clueless honkies? And how do we get out of this stupid club? Now, I have a suggestion for just such a story that would meet all these design parameters. But two things. One, I'm out of time. And two, maybe you do too. Thanks for your time and attention.